Hi, this is Teresa McDowell with my Modulate case study for EDL 853 Special Education for School Leaders entitled Get This Child Out of My Room. Summary of the situation is the student is Carl. He's a third grade student. His behavior has changed from self-harm to harming others. His parents were divorced 3 months ago in a very heated divorce. He does have an IEP for behavior disorder. His SPED teacher is Ms. Green, and she is teaching in a very rural school. She replaced a teacher for like 20 years who was very highly thought of in this school. The general education teacher is Mrs. Taylor, and she was very distraught and upset at his behaviors in the classroom and felt unable to control him. Ms. Green, then the special education teacher, developed a new intervention plan. Category 1, problem identification and analysis. Carl is a third grade student, I'm sorry. He has the IEP for behavior disorder for some things that I do know. His behavior has been escalating after the divorce 3 months ago. And examples of how it's escalated is he threw a pencil at a teacher and then he threw rocks at teachers off the school bus. The outburst seemed to come out of the blue after observation from the special education teacher. His intellectual functioning, it seems to be normal, exhibits no problems according to his psychological profile. His emotional problems, where he got the IEP designation, were insufficient for full-time services. What I know about his teacher, Mrs. Nancy Taylor, that she's a third grade teacher. She's considered a good teacher by her peers. She is experienced, having been there for 10 years. She was distraught at his behavior in the classroom, and all she wants is Carl out of the class. She seems to be unhappy with the current philosophy of keeping him in the room as much as possible, and she prefers the special education former teacher's method. She seems absorbed with her own problems of getting him out of the room and is unable to help Carl. Continuing with what I know about Ms. Susan Green, she is a recent college graduate, first-year teacher. She is a special education teacher. She's had a difficult time adjusting to a rural school. She feels like she's trying to live up to the former teacher's role, who was very well thought of. She's friendly and open to colleagues when they come and talk to her. She desires a collaborative relationship. She seeks outside resources. In this situation, she sought out the district coordinator's advice, and then she also took it to the superintendent. She does have a desire to follow the IEP guidelines. She told the regular ed teacher we couldn't just remove him from the classroom because that wouldn't be honoring the IEP. And she also has a strong desire to meet Carl's needs. What I know about Carl's family, they divorced 3 months ago, very heated divorce. Because of the divorce, Dad moved out and Mom had to start working, and she was working 50 hours a week to support the family. So Carl has had major disruption in his home life. We also know that the siblings are also identified with emotional problems, and we also know that they are receiving services. I know that the parents attend the IEP meetings, but they're not active partners. Mom just says whatever you want to do in former meetings, and Dad says let me sign, get me out of here. The parents are absorbed in their own problems, as shown where Mom was yelling at Dad, not even seeming to realize other people were in the room. And they are unable to help Carl because they're not even able to handle their own situation. Continuing with what I know about the educational setting, I know it's a very rural school. It's part of a cooperative. There are 16 different schools in the district. They share resources among them. I know it's very rural and it has financial hardships then, and I know it has financial hardships because they have to share the superintendent, and he can only visit, or he or she can only visit on a rotation basis. That also speaks to they have that creative hierarchy. So to meet the needs for supervision in the classroom, they designate a lead teacher, and they act as an assistant superintendent. So summarizing what I do know, the general education classroom right now is not meeting Carl's needs. The family and the parents are unable to help Carl. The school resources are stretched thin, and I do know his special education teacher, Ms. Green, does want to help Carl. What do I need to know? I need to know what triggers are occurring to precipitate it. Supposedly the behaviors are coming out of the blue with no provocation. I need to know what accommodations or rewards or consequences have been successful in the past. That might give us a good place to start. I need to know what accommodations or rewards or consequences are used currently. What is written in the IEP is maybe not what is being followed in the classroom, so I need to know for sure what is actually occurring. And then I need to know what outside resources were used successfully in the past. In this situation, both the family and Carl are in need of some outside resources and help and assistance. Identifying the problem. Due to behaviors and the lack of appropriate interventions, Carl's emotional and educational needs aren't being met. New tools and strategies are needed from the teacher at the school. The parents are unable to meet their own needs, so they're unable to meet Carl's needs. And then finally, we need a team approach. Instead of one person trying to handle it on their own, we need to all get together and meet and have a consensus of what to do. Category 2 proposes plan of action with appropriate strategies for implementation. The first thing I would propose is to review the IEP. I know they just had a new IEP, but I would want to review it and make sure it was being implemented. Then the second thing I would do would be conference with Ms. Green and give her recommendations of what would be successful. One of the recommendations, and these recommendations would be to protect Carl's education. Some of the other things would be to initiate services from outside resources, including the social worker to assist the family, a psychologist or social worker to work with the family and to work with Carl, and call for a team meeting to reach that consensus and protect Carl's education. The third thing I would do would be to arrange an in-service or continuing education to deal with Mrs. Taylor's lack of tools, but potentially other teachers' lack of tools as well. I would also then want to be proactive and set some policies and procedures in place so future problems don't occur. Some of those would be to communicate daily with Ms. Green since I can't be there physically, and to free up the assistant superintendent, the assistant one, to give him or her an extra hour a day to monitor and to be able to get that paperwork done. Category 3, resolve the issues based on promoting the success of all students. The first thing that I would do to resolve the issues is to build this team approach, meet with the family, the staff, and the community members, the pertinent ones, to meet together, to reach a consensus, to figure out what we can do to help this situation. I think it's important in that team approach to get consistency between what's going on in the home and the school. And the second thing I would do would be to revise or amend the IEP to ensure that Carl stays in the general education classroom. That is the least restrictive environment. And then I would modify the related services. He needs extra assistance. Specifically, I think he needs a behavior therapist or a social work interventions here. The third thing that I would do is I would have a general education teacher meeting, and I would emphasize positive communication. I think the teachers storming into the new teacher's classroom and saying, "Get this kid out of my room right now," is very unprofessional. I would emphasize we want to correct the behavior and not be unaccepting of the student. We want to make sure that child feels valued at all times, being accepting of the student. And then third, I would initiate, I would discuss with them how to do a cool down break. Instead of just removing him from the classroom, allowing Carl to have a cool down break. And just teaching different strategies with the teachers so we could build the climate and the culture of the school to be more positive. Category 4, debrief the problem by reflecting on what you were thinking, feeling, and valuing, and by identifying issues that are unresolved or open to further investigation. I was thinking why the staff thought so highly of Mrs. Lewis, and then also why Mrs. Taylor was held in such high regard. Both of these teachers seem to have issues. In one case, just giving a child a worksheet for the former former teacher that is replaced, that's not really good practice, and just removing from the classroom whenever the teacher is frustrated. I don't think that's a good practice. I also don't think it's a good practice just to want the kid removed from your classroom when they're disrupting to you. I think we need to learn strategies so that they can be successful in the classroom. I was also wondering what this home situation is like. If the mom is willing to scream in public with me, then what it must be like at home. And I also was thinking this school is at risk if this child and this situation is allowed to go unchecked. I was feeling frustrated with Mrs. Taylor. I was troubled with Carl's situation and his lack of acceptance in the school community. I was excited for Mrs. Green. She seems to be really on the ball and wanting the best for the students. And I was inspired to successfully meet student needs. I was valuing access to appropriate learning environment, and I was valuing a positive learning climate. This seems like a very negative one. I was also valuing commitment to best practices. I feel like the classroom teachers were not committed to best practices. Reflecting unresolved issues that I saw, why the staff thought so highly of these teachers who seemed pretty ineffective in my mind. I was also wondering what paraprofessional support would be like for Carl and how it could benefit him. Another unresolved issue would be Carl's home situation. I feel like that needs to be addressed so that they can be on the same page with the school. And then I was also really concerned with Carl's peer interactions. If he's being rejected by the teacher, which is what it sounded like to me, I feel like he's also going to be rejected by peers, and that's a scary thought. That's a high need for emotional development. Category 5, reflect on Standard 2. Promote the academic success of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. I wanted to create a safe learning environment, establish policies and procedures and protocols to ensure that that goes on, ensure a collaborative professional relationship among all staff members, provide or lead professional development to help build this positive culture, and provide oversight. There seemed to be a very large lack of oversight in this school with the superintendent only coming once a week. Seems like they were monitoring themselves. Component 2, promote the well-being of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. I would want to build relationship with all the stakeholders that's within the school and community members so they can benefit the students. Create shared values and positive staff relationship. We need to have the value that all students can succeed and then build the capacity to help them succeed. And the third thing would be to build positive culture in the community. Know that it takes a village to raise a child, and we all need to work together to that end. Component 3, enhance instructional capacity to build a collaborative time into the schedule so teachers can work together and collaborate what's working well with this student, to improve the culture of the school, the instructional culture, so that the teachers have positive attitudes, build school supports, professional development programs, after-school programs to help the students. I think that would help reduce some of the stress on the families. And then professional development, give the teachers new tools and new strategies. Work with community partners to provide basic medical needs, such as the dental, the vision, and even mental health, and provide social emotional development. Thank you very much. I think I went over.